Hello, everyone. Welcome to the new episode of the Life That Said Yes conversations. Today, our guest is an esteemed embryologist and philosopher, Jaap van der Wal. Welcome.
Thank you.
How are you feeling today, sir?
Well, I'm a little bit nervous because they started to work in the garden down there in my apartment, and they make a lot of noise. So I thought I would not be able to have the interview, but I'm okay. I'm fine. I'm just ready to go with you.
Nice, thank you. So, could we please start with a short introduction into your work and career?
Yeah.
How did you become an embryologist on the search for spirit?
Well, in I am 77 years old. So already more than 50 years ago, I started to study medicine.
Mhm.
I was 21. And in those days, anatomy and embryology was a medical discipline. You had institutes for anatomy and embryology. So it was in Holland. Now that has been split. Nowadays, embryology has become the domain of the gynecologist and of the biologist. But in those days, it was anatomy and embryology that was a kind of specialization. And of course, I didn't start to study medicine to become an anatomist or an embryologist. I wanted to become a doctor, a medical doctor. But there were two experiences that changed my mind. And the first one was a personal one. I was a second year student, and then more or less became pregnant. I mean with that my girlfriend and we became pregnant. And that was, of course, not planned very well. So, as a medical student, we had to arrange things, and then we married, and so on and so on. And then in the second year of my study, when this happened to me, and the child we raised then, or we conceived then, is now a man of 55 years old. And I was also having my first embryology practical. And we had to look through microscope at embryos and make drawings. We also had to open a chicken egg. And in that chicken egg, there was an embryo, a living embryo. And you could see the heart beating, you could see the blood vessels, a neural tube, everything was there. And it was so fascinating. It fascinated me more than usual. It was, well, this is interesting. This is maybe. But of course, I was so interested because my girlfriend was pregnant. And then I wrote to my girlfriend in uh, a letter, and I said, well, what I found this afternoon, what I met this afternoon, is maybe very important to me. Maybe I do not want to become a practitioner. Maybe I want to become a scientist because all these shapes and things I've seen now, but what it has to do with the child in your belly that very soon is going to make me a father, I don't know.
Mm.
And that is a split that is, so to say, is the center of my biography.
Hmm.
You know, having a child or becoming a father is an experience. But looking through a microscope to an embryo is the scientific observing of things. What has the embryo of science to do with the embryo in the belly of my girlfriend? There are two worlds. And it was by anatomy that when I started to study anatomy, and I was invited by a professor to become an assistant teacher. And then I introduced students on the dissection room, and for the first time they were there to dissect. And then I discovered more and more that the students expected something on the dissection room that was not there. They were fearing that they would meet dead corpses and that there was death. But there was no death. It was just clinical. It was very interesting. There were anatomical specimens. And then I learned from the students that, a dead person and a dead body, a corpse, that's something quite different from an anatomical specimen. And they really said to me, well, it has nothing to do with real human body. It's another world, it's another dimension. And then I experienced again the split between, yeah, the body that we are, the body that we experience, the body that we be, with the body that we know from the anatomy, from the atlases, and from science. That's another body, that's another reality. And
Right.
yet the two must fit together. And then I realized that the body of anatomy, the body of science, is actually the inanimated body. It's the body
Mm.
without a soul. It's
Right.
the body of no one. It's nobody. It's everybody. It's a scientific body. And what does the scientific body has to do with the body of me, with the body of my patients, the other reality? And so I realized there are two realities. And in those days, I met anthroposophy. And anthroposophy is a science, is a kind of philosophy that is trying to bring back spirit. Because according to anthroposophy, our reality is the reality of mind and body, of spirit and matter. It's
Mhm.
a duality, a kind of duality. There are two. And so I realized that maybe the embryo, maybe anatomy could help me to find a procedure or a method to see spirit in, to bring spirit in the scientific body, to connect
Mhm.
spirituality with science. And so I started to give courses, lectures about the embryo not as simply a clot of cells growing and do, but looking and trying to find in the embryo spirit. What is realizing there? What is happening there? Is embryology maybe incarnation? Is it that soul or spirit comes in and connects with the body? And then, so to say, started my quest for spirit in the body. And I found that phenomenology, that is a scientific approach, but not the approach of the onlooker, the observer, and having studying an object, but a phenomenologist, so to say, tries to participate with the
Mhm.
object that he is studying. So try to, it's more, it's more feeling, it's more, um, if you want to understand the tree, you can describe it, but you also can try to feel, be part of the tree. How is she growing? How is the colors of the leaves? What does it tell me? How do I experience it? And then I discovered it's possible by means of a phenomenological embryology to show people that our mind, our spirit, is not a product of the body, but that our mind, our spirit, is the beginning, is the primary thing, that we are beings of mind and body, and that mind and body, spirit and matter are always together. So that is why I started to give courses, and I met more and more people like osteopaths, cranio-sacral therapists, anthroposophists, people that wanted to know, is spirit real and can you see it? Of course, you cannot see spirit because it's non-matter, but you can see it in a scientific way. And then phenomenology is the approach. Phenomenology is not that you look upon, but that you try to involve yourself. If you see that an embryo is growing, you see that the embryo is making movements, motions. And then you come to gestures. Gestures is the word of the phenomenologist. A form, anatomy, is also the expression of a gesture. There's something expressing itself in that form. So
Mhm.
when I look at a human embryo, I see motion, I see movement, and I can try to analyze that movement, and then I can try to find the causes, but I also can try to understand the motions and the processes. What is expressed in that? What is expressed in the way you shape your arm? What is expressed in the human body when it's shaped in the embryonic phase. And yeah, that's what, so to say, so for me, the embryo became the domain where I could try to find with people spirit. And spirit for me is not something that is produced by the body, but spirit, my soul, is actually the principle that is shaping, performing. We do not come from our body, we go through our body. We do not come from our parents, we come through our parents. So my spirit, my soul is not coming from the body. No, the body, we made the body. Cell by cell, we made it, said Rumi. Rumi, that is science in the 13th century or philosophy in the 13th century. So things became reversed, not me coming from the body, not the body coming from a cell, but the body as my first expression, my first way of being. So I found out that it's possible to see spirit in the body if you understand the body as a process, as a gesture,
Right.
as an expression of, in this case, human or man or human or humanness. Is that a little bit of an answer?
I think so.
Yeah, well, things because uh, it means that for me, I had to learn that anatomy is only a secondary reality. It is
Right.
anatomy is form, is shape, and in living nature, living beings are always in motion.
Right.
Living beings are processes.
Right.
Your body is not simply an anatomical spatial structure. Your anatomy, your body is a process in time. So
Mhm.
actually, the primary thing in you is the embryo, is your embryonic shaping, performing your body. Every second, every day, you are involved in shaping, performing, creating a body. So the embryo is not a past, and you
Right.
did not get a body and then you started to work with that body. No, you still are
Mhm.
shaping, performing your body as a process. And processes can be understood as movements, motions, and then emotions can be understood what is expressed. So I,
Mhm.
so to say, changed my focus from the forms to the movement, the processes that are
Process.
behind the forms. That's only true in living nature. I mean, in the dead nature, in the physical nature, yeah, then things are spatial and they can be moved. But in living nature, movement, motion is the primary thing. And form, anatomy, structure is the secondary thing.
Right.
So to understand a body, a shape, a creature, a wolf, I have also to know how did the organism shapes its body, and then I might understand what is
Mm.
expressed. Then I might understand the spirit, the mind of that
Right.
body.
And exactly those things that you are saying right now made me fall in love in a way with embryology. When I started experiencing all these processes as living processes,
Yeah,
which are still alive in me and very much inform me as I am now, and I
yeah,
am just a continuation of that whole process. And this element of personal experience and involving myself not as a observer but as an experiencer
yeah,
of that process,
yeah.
as being that process in the moment, it opened a whole world of wonders inside
Yeah,
of me
that's right.
and made me feel my spirit started shining more through my body.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's also a very mysterious process, which is
Yeah, it's on the one hand it's mysterious, on the other hand it's very close, very near.
right.
Consciousness is the primary thing everybody knows about. I mean, we
Right.
are experts in consciousness. We are expert in mind. We are minds. And nowadays they do so much trouble to find out what consciousness is. Where is it coming from? How does it work from the brain? Actually, yeah, that is looking for it at the wrong place. You should look for mind and spirit in your experience, not in your body. Of course, your body also is consciousness and has consciousness, but yeah, you're right. It's a process in time, and yeah. So I need another approach to understand soul. That I will not. Soul is everywhere, not only in your brain, because
Of
that's the
course.
modern idea. And that mind is produced by the body. No, it's opposite. The body was also shaped when that's the fantastic thing of a living organism. A living organism cannot be a machine. We are not machines because a machine is a spatial structure that is built up from elements, and someone or another machine, put these elements together, and then the end product was a machine. But that's not with us. That's not with living beings. Living beings are, from the very beginning, from the very conception on, they are constructing themselves. It is autopoiesis. You shape yourself. And that is the mind in you, that is spirit in you, that together with the body shapes the organism, shapes the body. And so that means that my consciousness is not a product of the body. My body, so to say, is an appearance of my soul, of my consciousness.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And I would say this is a very empowering
yeah,
realization that
yeah,
we are the shapers, that we are the
yeah.
creators,
And
that our
I learned,
consciousness is the creator.
yeah, and I learned therefore a very important issue from Mr. Erich Blechschmidt. He was the first great human. He was German in the last century, and he was the first human embryologist who really could make reconstructions of embryos by means of nowadays we have a computer to do that, but he had to do it with microscopical slices and photograph them, and then he made three-dimensional models of embryos. And
Mm.
he came to a very important conclusion. He says spirit or mind, my soul, let's say everything in me that's not my body, because that's Descartes. Descartes said there is body in us and there is something else in us. And
Mm.
that something else you can call your soul, your spirit, your mind. And Blechschmidt said, soul is therefore not something that comes in later, at the fourth week or the fourth month or at birth. No, soul is there from the very beginning on. And what is your soul doing in the embryo? It is pre-exercising. It is pre-exercising what it later can do physiologically,
Mm.
psychologically. And the
Mm.
key word is the gesture. Um, if Nowadays many people know that there comes a moment that the child comes upright for the first time. It's a magic moment. They are 1 or 1.5 years old, and for the first time they can balance in themselves. And when you see the child for the first time experiencing itself as standing on 2 feet, there's a joy. There's a joy of self-recognition. They feel themselves, I can stand on my own. And Blechsmith says, that's not the first time. That's
Mm.
the second time. It was pre-exercised in the way you shaped your body, because the human embryo is very specialized and characterized by a moment, the embryo is very flexed in the beginning, and then from the 6th week on, it starts to come upright. There comes a deflection of the head, a deflection of the pelvis, and then comes the typical human vertical position. We are the only ones that incorporate our gravity center so that we can balance on our 2 feet. And that is pre-exercised in the embryo. The embryo comes upright, not physiologically, but morphologically. So
Mhm.
Blechsmith says there is first a morphological coming upright. Then there comes a physiological coming upright. And then there comes a psychological coming upright. When the child for the first time says, I want a piece of bread, or I don't want to eat this, then they suddenly come to a spiritual or psychological coming upright. And maybe there come later in their lives more moments that you have to stand upright and say no to maybe the Russians or something like that. But that's a political answer.
Political, yeah.
So, and that was for me eye-opening. So
Right.
it's not the way that we first shape a body and then we start to function with that body and become beings of mind. No, we are first pre-exercising all our soul gestures in morphological gestures and then in physiological gestures. And that's the secret. So that you are from the beginning in mind and body, but the first thing you do and still are doing is shaping, performing, maintaining your body. Every morning you wake up with a new body because things are changed, things has remodeled. That's why you are so adaptive. And that a machine can never do. A machine is an
Yes.
absolute spatial structure and it is not still making itself. So we are living beings.
But somehow, at certain points in our life, is it because of maybe the social structuring
Yeah.
or the ideas that are implanted or floating generally in society, we start to perceive ourselves as fixed
Yeah.
entities?
Hmm.
And we lose that malleability, that
Yeah. Yeah.
possibility to mold, to shape, to
Mm.
flow. That's why I additionally think that going back to embryology, not as a regression, but as a concrete reality inside of us, is so useful
Yeah.
because it reminds us of this creative potential that we have to create and recreate, and
Yeah.
that we are never fixed.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also thinkable that, this sequence of morphological gestures and behavior, physiological, psychological, maybe you can go on social. Maybe when we have to create a good society, we have to look at the organisms. What, how do organisms organize themselves? And so we can create maybe social organisms that are, biological, so to say, to speak. And we have completely lost that. We think that everything comes from the brain. And top-down organization is not biology. Biology is bottom-up organization.
Mhm.
And so our modern idea that we have a brain and the brain is organizing and doing everything is a false concept. Your mind is everywhere. It's in your feet, in your eyes, in your brain. In your brain only there is consciousness. There is awareness. In your liver, you are very intelligent. Your liver is far more intelligent than your brain because your liver knows already for millions of years how you should deal with cholesterol. And here we still don't know what to do with cholesterol because there's
Right.
still a lot of discussion. But your knowledge, your knowing in the liver is an unconscious knowing.
Mhm.
And here you can become aware of things that happen and that are possible in your body. And then consciousness comes up. So the brain is the complete mirror of your organism. And the brain enables you to become aware of things that happen in your soul, in your mind, but it's not the organizer. It's not controlling and ruling everything. It's a kind of, yeah. I always compare it with a mirror, with a kind of in your brain. Everything, every information of the world, all the information of your body is brought to there, and then it comes in a kind of state that enables you to make it possible, to make it conscious if you want to. So the brain is only an instrument for consciousness and awareness. It's not
Right.
my soul, it's a part of my soul where I
Right.
can think, but your liver you can do. That's what I learned from the sports students. I trained sports students for 20 years. They wanted to become Olympic and they got anatomy lessons. And they taught me that when they perform in the stadium, they have to get rid of their head. They have to make contact. They have to come in a kind of trance. The body knows exactly how you come over the rope.
Right.
If they start to think how to come over the rope, they fail. So there's a lot of knowing and action and doing and willing in your body, and your brain is the one that enables you to make that conscious.
Mhm. Yes, and I think it's also coming into fullness of our being,
Yes, yes, yeah, yeah,
where we are no longer giving the leadership to just one part of us,
yeah,
but actually perceiving ourselves
yeah,
as complete beings. And then even in that situation, our brain becomes more, in a way, efficient and functional because it gets the support of the whole and it doesn't have to control
yeah,
everything.
yeah. So like Descartes and like Blechschmidt says, soul and body, mind and body are always together. They are one. But
Mhm.
in the brain, the relationship is maybe a little bit different than in your liver or in your limbs. There you are more connected with the body, and in your mind, in your brain, in your eyes, ears, you can become more or less body free and create a whole universe of
Mhm.
thoughts and ideas and feelings. And
Yeah.
so yeah, and that's what one of your questions I got from you in advance is about that. I found out that the embryology that I teach is a polarity embryology. From the beginning on, even at conception, there is in your body, in the embryo, a huge, an enormous polarity going on. And that brought me to the idea that mind and body is not a duality, it's a polarity. And what is the difference?
Mm.
A duality like Descartes proposed to think about mind and body, res extensa, res cogitans, as two separate things. But they
Mhm.
are not separate. But if you think they are separate, you can think them apart from each other. But when it's a polarity is the lemniscate, is the figure, is the process that the one is the inversion of the other. Man and women, male and female, is a polarity. Of course, we are completely different, but we are connected by the fact that the maleness is the inversion of female. So
Mhm.
a polarity is a duality that is connecting, that belongs to each other. And that's the difference. A duality separates, makes war, but polarity connects. So
Mhm.
everywhere in my body there's soul, there is spirit. Everywhere in my body there's mind and body. But in the liver, in my abdomen, in my limbs, I have another relationship between mind and body as it is in my brain and in my sense organs. And in my course I explain to people and I show them that in the beginning, the body is a process, but there come organs where the process slows down and nearly becomes anatomy. Let's say your brains, your eyes, your nervous system, your skeleton. There are organs where you, so to say, life, the motion slows down, and then you approach, so to say, anatomy. It comes to form. It never becomes completely to form, because if you completely would come to form, then you would die. Then the process would stop. And there are other organs where you stay as vital as you are in the embryo, because the embryo is an enormous vitality. It's growing, it's massive, growing thousands, millions of cells per day. So some organs remain embryonic, like your bone marrow, your liver, your guts, all these vital organs where you stay a vital being. And as long as there is vitality in your body, as long as your body is growing, performing, processing like a liver, then you sleep in that body. There you know exactly what to do, but sleeping. But in some of organs, you awake. And that are the organs where, so to say, the vitality disappears. And when the vitality withdraws, then apparently soul life, consciousness, awareness can come up. And it's a very strange paradox that our brain, in a way, is a nearly dead organ. And there where life withdraws and nearly comes to the form and the shape, there spirit might become body free and wake up as thinking, feeling, ideas, or whatever. And all the ideas you have in your head come from your body, but also come from what you experience and what you see and what you hear. And yeah, the brain, yeah, maybe you recognize the word near-death experience.
Yes.
People that have a near-death experience always talk about, well, my consciousness was enormous. I understood everything. I was connected with everything. It was amazing. So apparently, the embryo in you is there where you still have to maintain and process and do your body. But your brain, your mind, that's where your body, where your soul, where your spirit, yeah, comes body free, and then comes the whole unimaginable universe of your spirit life, of your soul life, of your thinking, and so on. Is that a strange idea? But it depends on that I see in the embryo from the beginning on, egg cell, sperm cell. It's the largest polarity you could ever imagine.
Right.
And when
Can
they
we
come
stay a little-
together, then you get a connection of an enormous polarity that apparently has to do with us being spirit and body. Spirit and body is the primary polarity.
Can we stay a little bit with this moment of conception?
Yeah,
What exactly does it tell us about who we are and about this dance of the masculine and feminine polarities?
yeah,
And also, I feel the way we look at our morphology and how we become, it often is connected to a certain worldview.
yeah.
So, traditional worldview of conception is the male.
Fertilizers.
What can you tell us about the moment of conception?
Yeah, yeah. It's crucial because if we are a being of spirit and body, if we are a being of two, the question becomes logic, where do we come from? That's what children ask. Children ask, where do I come from? And then they do not ask for their body, nay, they ask, where do I come from? Something in me must be different. That's Descartes. Descartes says, there must be something in me that's not my body, otherwise I wouldn't know about my body. Otherwise I could not be aware of my body. There is something else. So could it be that at conception, something comes together, something connects, which at a deathbed, when a person dies, is separated? Because again, the children ask the scientific question, because when children are confronted with a deathbed, with a dying person, the first question they ask is, where has granddaddy gone? So they describe, they experience a deathbed as a separation. Something goes away. What was united before, granddaddy with his body, now is separated, and there's a remaining a body. Could it be that it was my first question? What happens at a conception? Could it be that conception is not simply the beginning of something, but that conception is the first moment that something comes together that up to now was separated and now becomes connected? So I started to study what actually is a zygote. Because the zygote is by nearly everybody considered as a cell. We start as a cell, and the zygote is not a cell. The zygote is the result of the fusion of a sperm cell and an egg. And the big mistake people still are making is that they think that the seed the semen of the man is a seed. It's not seed. Seed is a germ. Plants make seeds, and out of the seed can grow a whole plant.
Right.
Animals make eggs, embryos, and out of an egg of an embryo, a whole new being. That are germs. But a sperm cell and an egg cell are not germs. They are simple sex cells, very specialized cells.
Right.
And they are huge polarity. And they are so polarity that they cannot fuse. In our modern techniques, we have to take a needle, and with a lot of violence, you can take a sperm cell and introduce that sperm cell into the egg. But it takes an enormous amount of violence. It's a very violent procedure. Why do we do that? Because we still think that men make women pregnant. We still think that the sperm, the seed of the man, is the germ, and that a man impregnates his seed in a woman, and out of that comes a new human being. That's a very old-fashioned idea. Because in 1855, 1852, we discovered the egg cell. And then we realized it's not the man that makes the woman pregnant. No. For a human germ, you need a sperm and an egg cell. They have to fuse, and then the woman can become pregnant of that fruit. So pregnancy starts actually at the moment when the child is nesting into its mother. The zygote is not a cell. The zygote is a human body, a unicellular body. And that means that at conception, two cells that are so specialized in, the one is specialized in nucleus and DNA, and the other is specialized in cytoplasm. It's enormous polarity. And that when they fuse, then something is performed that goes beyond cell and becomes an organism. A unicellular organism. That's how life started. Cell is not the unit of life. No, organisms are the units of life. And cells are the particles by which an organism can organize itself and differentiate itself into organs, but we are not a product of cells. And in the same way, the zygote is not a cell. When the sperm cell fuses with the egg cell, and I will show you what it means, then there comes a organism, a unicellular organism. And that organism starts to grow. Yes, it starts to grow, but it's not the product of that zygote. That zygote is already the body.
Right.
And the body starts to suborganize itself into cells, millions, trillions of cells. And then these cells become differentiated in organs and types and tissues. So the whole is the primary thing. The organism is the primary thing. And the organs and the parts and the cells are the secondary thing. So we do not start as a cell, and we are not the product of cells. We are a zygote, a human body from the beginning on, and we organize ourselves in cells. So, in my view, apparently, something connects with these two cells, and then the two cells, when they fuse, are transformed, no longer being a cell, but then a zygote is coming up. So that could be that at conception, something connects with the egg and the sperm, and that this connection also becomes biological, and then you see that a zygote comes up, and that's the first moment a mind, a spirit, a soul connects with the body. It's incarnation. And it's the first, I always say it's the first subtle kiss of spirit to the matter. Later on, there comes deeper connection. At the end, when you are nesting, there's even a further connection. And when you are in the third week, you come even deeper into your body. There are steps, phases of coming deeper into your body. But the first moment, conception, means therefore that children are not made, and that is what the technique seems to tell us. The technique seems to tell us that the idea that the sperm can fertilize an egg is true, because when you take a needle and you push a sperm into an egg cell, then you also get a fertilized egg cell, then you also get a zygote. So they think that it's that we started as with the fusion of a cell, and I show in my course that at conception something else happened. You see in conception that they cannot fuse. They are polarity. They are so different. And then they start to create a situation for hours and hours. Cells, the sperm cells and one egg cell, turn around each other and create a situation of exchange. They start to dialogue with each other because they cannot fuse, but she has to open. He has to connect. It's not that the sperm intrudes or how do you call it?
Penetrates.
Is injected in. There's no opening. No, an egg cell is selective. An egg cell is not passive. She defines which sperms come in and where and when. So there's a dialogue. And then after that dialogue and that exchange, they create a situation in which apparently spirits might come in. I always say, if you are a being of spirit and matter, there must be one moment suppose you are a being of spirit, and that you have to find yourself a way to earth. Then you cannot incarnate in a table. I cannot incarnate in your body. I cannot incarnate in this body. I have to go for a little particle of matter where life, so to say, is opening in my direction, in my spiritual dimension. So it has to be a process where matter, so to say, is dematerialized, a little bit becomes open for something else. And conception is biologically the exact moment where that is possible. There the situation becomes so spiritualized, it becomes so open. Together they create something that is neither sperm nor egg. At the same time, it's a sperm and an egg, and yet it's something new. And that is why I say, in between that sperm and egg interaction, there's created a situation that is open for the third. And the third is the child. And the first time the child can make connection with these two dancing cells, and then the zygote comes. So I'm not a product of a zygote. No, I made a zygote. We made the body cell by cell, we made it. And so connection is the moment of conception, is the moment of connection, where deathbed is the opposite, is the moment of separation. The problem is, at the deathbed, we know who is going away. But at conception, we don't know who's coming in.
Right.
Even 9 months later, when the mother has a child on her arm, she still don't know who she has. You have to wait a life long. At the end of the life of Goethe, Goethe became Goethe. And it's not that they already said when Goethe was 10 years old and when he was playing with sand in Weimar, that people did not say already, oh, look, the great Goethe. No, Goethe became Goethe when he died. Then the biography was ready. So our lives, our souls, my whole being, Jaap van der Wal, the embryologist, is not a product of my body, is not a product of my brain. No, I am an appearance. I appear by means of my body. So my whole life long, I'm a gesture of incarnation, connecting with the body. And at the same time of leaving the body. When you breathe in and out, when you breathe out, you will die. When you breathe in, you will die. You have to respirate. So that is what happens in your body. You're constantly incarnating, excarnating. It's a breath in physiology, breast in morphology, and that is a living organism. That's our existence, mind and body. And conception is the third connection. And that is why I always emphasize children are not made. Children are made possible. We create conditions where the third one can incarnate. And the needle is quite a different situation. Then we are at work. We, with a lot of violence, we force, a human being or whatever, or spirit to come in. I think that's the case. But people don't like this story because people nowadays think that we have children, that we make them, that we want them, that we wish them, and that we now also can make them. And that's a big error.
Right.
In Holland, we have big discussions the last century about slavery. Slavery in human history, so often one person was the possession of another person. That should not be. We are never a possession of someone else. We are ourselves, also our children. Our children come from us, come through us, not from us. And that's what I think a very, bad tendency nowadays, that we think about reproduction as, repeating yourself and your children. No. Human beings do something else. Human beings are not only reproducing. We create future. We create possibilities for the future. We create openings for other beings. That's what we do.
And the other story is just really selfish in a way,
Yeah.
perceiving that
Yeah.
the children are
Yes.
a continuation of our legacy,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
ourselves. Yeah. And like the whole generations were exposed to that kind of upbringing, where the parent is actually controlling the narrative of who the child should be,
Yeah.
because she and he created the child
Yeah. Yeah.
and made the child. Yeah.
It
And
should be
also
our
when you
child.
mentioned this process of injecting it, really just talking about it, you can see how violent it is opposed to the organic process
Yes. Right. Yeah.
of this dance,
Yeah. Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
mating
And
dance.
a nuance, a little bit nuance is I'm talking about the ICSI procedure, new intracellular sperm injection. We also have the IVF, and the IVF, it's more that you more or less, it happens like it's in vivo, because then we bring one egg together with 200,000 sperm cells. But even there, we nowadays have all kind of procedures, chemical procedures, to force the two to fuse with each other. It's not open, free. It's not. Yeah. And don't ask me if such procedures then cause disorders. That's a lot of discussion is about that. Are children that are raised with ICSI, do they have more psychological or social disorders? The statistics are not yet sure about that. My simple idea about this is maybe ICSI and in vitro fertilization does not cause disorder, but it is a disorder. It's a disorder to think in this way about creating life, creating children, making them. Maybe that is a mental disorder, a social disorder.
Right.
Because with these new techniques and these comes new parenthood. If you look at our modern parents, they are so different from how parenthood was. So I don't know exactly what is going on, but there is something going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to do with understanding ourselves. If we understand
Right.
ourselves as a cyborg, as a consciousness produced by a machine, body produced consciousness, then we are going the wrong way.
Exactly. But I think more and more this knowledge that you are bringing is coming into light.
No,
No, you don't think so?
no, look at there's a massive tsunami of genetic techniques coming. No, For the first 20 years, I don't see improvement. But you're right. There's a sub wave. There's a how do you call it? Understream of
Right.
other thinking, holistic thinking. But science is giant. It's everywhere. I mean, neurophysiology nowadays is booming. It's exploding. Everything is nowadays explained in the form of brain processes, and then they start to manipulate. They can help in your psychotrauma. Suppose you have a trauma of being abused or from war or whatever. Nowadays, until now, we did psychotherapy. We try to help you to face the crisis, the trauma, to face it and to give it, in your own life, a possibility to be, so that you could accept it, that you could integrate it. But nowadays, they give you needles, they give you drugs, they give you vagus stimulation so that you can get rid of the pain and the trouble that your trauma is causing. And they call it therapy. That's not therapy. That is treatment. That's just finding a symptomatic trick. So the brain, there's another 5 decades to go by brain research, and it will. I'm not so positive maybe as you are. I see the understream, but it's very weak. Yeah, maybe I'm
Something to
negative.
contemplate. Yeah. Let's talk about the moment of birth. It's also the end of the embryo phase and the beginning of something new. How do you perceive this moment of actually coming
Yeah,
out of this fluid water environment into air?
yeah, yeah. Many people still, and I think they're right, consider birth as a beginning. It's the beginning of. And some ethical people also say, well, it's really at birth that you are, so to say, you are a human being. Before that, you are not yet. But birth is, yes, a beginning. It's a new phase is beginning, but it's also an ending. It's the end of a kind of life, a way of living. It's not the end of the embryo. Actually, it's a dramatic change, revolution in the way of being that you had before and that will come after you're born. And you're right, it has to do with air, it has to do with breathing. But I can describe in my courses that at birth also a process of dying occurs. It's not simply the beginning like a conception. Like a conception, you could say, okay, something comes with it. There comes something in, something connects. But then very soon you will see, and that already happens at the end of the first week, you see that your body falls apart. Your wholeness, your zygotic, your unicellular body falls apart in more cells. And at the end of the first week, you see that even a first differentiation comes up. You get a center and you get a periphery. We call that embryoblast and trophoblast. And the embryoblast will become the body that's now sitting in the chair. And the trophoblast will become your placenta. So what I see is that the placenta is not something that is added to the body in order to survive the 9 months in your mother. No, I see that your oneness body, your whole body, is falling apart in a center and a periphery. That means that the placenta is not added, it is a part of your body. And it's the most important part of your body during your prenatal life. Why? There you will start to connect with the world. There you'll start to connect with your mother. There you will find all the nutrients, all the oxygen, all the things you need. And in the center, you will try to become more and more autonomous. And at the end, you have to separate from your placenta, you have to separate from your mother in order to come in the next phase of autonomous being on yourself. So what I see during the whole prenatal development is that there are 4 steps, 4 phases in which you, so to say, more and more disconnect between your central body with all the organs that's now sitting in the chair and your placenta, your periphery body. And what in the beginning is 1 becomes a 2, and then it becomes separated. First by connective tissue, by fascia, then there comes water, the amniotic fluid. And more you see that placenta and body become separate. So that means that actually being born is dying out of yourself. Like at the deathbed, there's a corpse. Your placenta is not simply an organ, it's a corpse. It's left behind. And that means that dying is not, and negative, dying is the gesture of development. You have to develop from your placenta. You have to take the word literally. Even wachten. You have to take your word literally. Because 9 months long, you envelope, you take a mantle around you with which you can deal with the world. And you have to die out of that environment in order to come in the next phase. So dying is a necessary gesture to leave the former way of being to come in the next one. And so it's not your first birth. The birth that you perform when you are born is pre-exercised in the 4th and 5th week of your prenatal, of your embryonic period. Then you make the same gesture. You nearly detach your body from your placenta, because morphologically you create then a fluid a space around you, and you are nearly disconnected. And then at birth, you do it physiologically. Then you will be born out of yourself, you will die out of yourself. And don't think it's your last birth. Every time you have to repeat this gesture your whole life. Your whole life, you will try to get an envelope, an environment that will feed you, that will help you, that nourishes you, that inspires you. Again, you are connected with the whole world, and everything of the world comes to you. But you have to die out of that in order to come in the next phase of consciousness, of autonomous thinking, of what. When the child for the first time goes to school and mother is crying again, it's also a birth. You have to leave your former behind. That is why, take care, that is why, in principle, Darwin cannot be right. Oh, Darwin is right, but people made the wrong interpretation. People think that the one animal, was transformed in the next. No, more of a chimpanzee never becomes a human being. Between the chimpanzee and the human being, there has a development. We developed out of the chimpanzee. We are not the product of the chimpanzee. The chimpanzee helped us to come in the next stage of development. Every animal was helped by the former species, so to say, to develop out of that. And that is why I think that dying is actually a gesture of development. And that happens at birth. And a phenomenon of that is that your whole 9 months long before you're born, you live in the water. And now you come in air. Air is not an element that you are aware of when you are fetus or embryo. Now you come in air. And do you know what air is doing? In your lungs and in your guts, there's a wall, a body wall. There you are dealing with the world. On your outside, you also have a body wall, your skin and your sense organs. Let's say your what we call in osteopathy the parietal body wall. That's your outside body wall. And with that, you are doing, acting and hearing and listening. But with your visceral body wall, with your guts and your lungs, you connect with the world. There you come in deep incarnation with the world. And now it happens in your lungs becomes the wall, the epithelium between the air around you and the blood in you becomes so thin that every breath you take, it's a deep incarnation, it's a very deep connection with the world, with the matter. And that is
Right.
why I think that we still live in a placenta.
Right.
Like prenatally, you lived in your placenta, and the placenta was, your environment that you were connecting with the mother, and you had to develop out of that, and there was water between you. But now you live again in a placenta. The whole world, you, the people around you, is again your environment on which you have to develop. You need the other, you need the world to become aware, to find your own, to create your own universe and to create your own, and so on. So I think that being born is dying in a next phase of being, and that again we live in a placenta, and that is you, that's the world around us.
Beautiful.
The strange
Yes,
idea.
and actually the very breathing by its physiological function, it's a relationship
Yeah, yeah. And
with
it is,
the natural world, and the plants and the algae gives us oxygen, and we take it in and we
yeah,
expel the gas that they nourish themselves with.
yeah,
So like every breath is a relationship within
yeah.
that
And you
placenta
also could say every
environment.
breath is in an excarnation,
Right.
connecting and let it go. It's not only a physiological gesture, it's also a sociological gesture, a psychological gesture. And breathing is also a psychological gesture. You can connect with yourself, you can connect with the other, you connect too much to with the other, and then you die, or you can only connect with yourself, and you also become, so to say, one-sided.
Mm.
Okay.
Beautiful, beautiful how within these basic processes of life
Yeah.
there are all these life lessons.
Yeah, yeah. That's right. That's what Wesley says. Soul is pre-exercise. The embryo learns our lessons how to behave, how to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and this idea also of shedding, dying and shedding a certain
Yeah,
part of us,
yeah,
which doesn't have to be or probably isn't very comfortable or pleasant, but it's a necessary step for the
yeah,
growth.
yeah. If you talk about evolution, evolution would not have been possible if there was not mortality.
Right.
Mortality is an essential feature of living beings, and it's mortality that enables us to evolve.
Hmm.
And that's why I hate all these modern transhumanism that want to make us 120, 400 years alive, and repairing ourselves constantly. What a nonsense. If we
Right.
become immortal, development will stop. We can never give way to another generation. So, immortality, maybe God can be immortal. It must be a punishment to be immortal. But
Exactly.
we
Yeah.
are mortal, so we can develop. We can, in
Yeah.
10 years, also develop a new earth and a new world if we also want to.
I feel these transhumanist ideas about prolonging life
Yeah,
are really deeply rooted in the fear of death, really ignoring this essential part of
yeah,
us, which
yeah,
is spirit and soul. And then they cannot see the transmutation, the
yes,
transformation, the evolution, the growth and the shedding.
yeah,
But death seems too final, and then the fear comes up,
yeah,
and then it's like, okay, we're gonna solve it with our intelligence and our science. But yeah, I feel maybe all these ideas are also something that as our evolution goes on, it's
yeah,
something that we're gonna have to shed,
yeah, of course. Yeah,
as a ballast.
yeah,
When the ship is sinking, we're gonna just have to throw something
yeah, I hope so. Yeah, yeah,
away in order to reconnect with the
yeah,
totality of the whole.
yeah. A very well known Dutch anthroposophists once said to me, we need to go through all this scientific materialism in order to become good holists and spiritualists. We have to overcome materialism, but first you have to know what it is to only believe in matter, to only believe in the body. It will be a dead end, but it will help us to come in our own way to the view that we are beings of love and spirit and connection. But we have to
Right.
go through the materialism.
Yes.
It's a kind of learning. It's a kind of
Hmm.
helping learning.
Beautiful.
But it can take another century before we are right. I don't know.
Which seems a lot according to our lifespans, but in the process of evolution, it's really
Yeah,
not so long.
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah. And I noticed you also like poetry
yeah, that's
and
right.
Rumi, and for me, it's amazing how people who had this deep sensitivity of life,
Yeah,
like poets and mystics, they were attuned to all this knowledge without having any kind of scientific explanation of it.
yeah, that's right.
But they
Yeah,
just felt life
yeah,
deeply and were able to come with this inspirational poetry and knowledge of what life really is.
yeah, I agree. Where do they have the inspiration from? The poet, phenomenologists, they also are inspired, but not by a brain or by an organ, but something else in us we know of. Yeah.
Mm,
Inspiration.
yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for this conversation.
Yeah, it's enough.
I think so. It's very rich.
And maybe
Well,
I,
I hope maybe to see you sometimes live anywhere in the world
yeah, yeah. Okay, try it.
and to
Yeah,
get an experience of your
yeah, because
workshop.
my course, of course, also brings people in action. We make movements, we make gestures, we dance a little bit, we make drawings. To have more the how you experiencing that. It's not only about thinking or
Yes.
observing. It's also about thinking, experiencing, and feeling.
And I think this is the most important thing to let this knowledge express
Yeah, that's
through
right.
through the totality of who
Yeah,
we are as creative beings and beings with movement. And I can tell you from my own experience, these embryological processes, when we went into the embodiment of them, they were really mystical experiences for
yeah,
me
right. Yeah,
because they gave me so much inspiration
yeah,
and such a strong connection and a heart opening that it's something really hard to put into words. But I was searching for these experiences through many methods.
hmm,
But when I actually came to the embryo inside of me,
yeah,
it was like, there it is.
yeah. There it is.
There
Yeah,
it is. It's shining and it's coming through and
that's
it's
right.
expressing
Yeah,
itself in the spirals of the
yeah,
movement, of creativity, of just
that's right.
sensitivity towards life.
That's why I call my courses the embryo in us. Really the answer to these things is in you. Yeah,
Right.
and not only in here. And I now point
Yes.
at my head. It's in you, in your body, everywhere it is.
Yeah. And it's here in the present moment. It's not a regression.
That's right. Yeah,
It's a state of being here and now. And it's our birthright in a
yeah,
way
that's right.
to touch upon it, to
Yeah,
feel it.